Hi everyone, I'm Monks, and welcome to my madness. Today we're going to be sculpting with polymer clay. And I thought, being that it's my favorite time of the year, why not indulge myself with a nice scary vampire sculpt. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, first things first, I need armature wire and tinfoil. And you might ask yourself, well, what's the purpose of this? To which I respond, well, any creature of the night needs a skeleton. Not to mention this helps me save on clay usage, because I don't know if you guys have noticed out there, it's expensive. And I gotta keep this lab afloat. Plus ultimately, it will help your projects not crack. That's due in part because tinfoil has a minimal expansion rate, so less likely for your project to pop a bubble. Though, it is still possible. Now with the vampire's body all done, time to build out that grave. The nice thing with my design is I only have to build half a vampire, and the rest is just the grave. Well, and of course a headstone, because, well, what's a grave without a headstone? Just a disturbed pile of dirt, I guess, with somebody underneath. These little bits of wire I will use to form my head. Now the reason I'm keeping this separate is, it's because it's easier. I can handle the head and the torso separately and make the detail work a lot easier. Now that my tinfoil and wire party's over, I can start laying down some clay. Now, I'm just laying down a basic foundation, blocking out where muscles go, proportions, so on and so forth. We'll save the finer details once we get everything all together. But with the majority blocked out, I can bring out the tools. These silicone shapers are great for blending and making things appear a little more organic. Don't worry too much about making mistakes with your own projects. Polymer clay is quite forgiving, and you can go back and correct your mistakes. Now that I have everything sort of blended together, I can go back in and start doing more finer detail work. I'm a big fan of detail work because it makes your sculpting so much more interesting to look at. And it hides any silly mistakes you've made along the way. Potentially. I'm sure some of you will be very honest in the comments. With the basic detailing done on the torso, I'm going to move on to making the head. Now, with every project, I like to have a little backstory. I landed on the idea of this vampire being a gym rat prior to his dark transformation. And naturally, with an inflated ego, comes an equally inflated head. With a basic head shape done, I can start going in for those details. I'll use my ball stylus tool here to mark out the nose, mouth, eye holes. Slowly squishing everything into, well, a scary, monstrous grimace. I'd imagine anyone who woke up in a gravesite after a good night of gymming would be pretty upset. Also, what would a vampire be without a nice good snarl? And my favorite vampire-style faces were the ones that had a little bit of a demonic quality to them, so I'll give him a nice lumpy bumpy brow. Once the screaming visage is complete, I'll stick in some noodles of clay to make up some gums. With these, I can take some pre-baked pieces of clay I've shaped into fangs and give him a nice grin. The gums will act as a placeholder, also giving me a base to squish the teeth into. But before I get to that, this guy needs some ears. And in true vampire fashion, they're going to be nice, big, and pointed. Cause who knows, maybe they have sonar detection. Rather fitting, I think. With some ears that could make an elf blush, I'll carefully start pressing in my chompers. You want to be careful with pre-baked clay as it can sometimes be a little brittle, but that can also depend on the type of clay you get. Now though the teeth press into place pretty nicely, it's good to have some bacon bond with you as well. That way you don't have anything fall out or break off. Before the oven, it's a little wash with some isopropyl alcohol and a quick fitting of some eyes. For the eyes, I've used a clay with glowing properties, however, I don't know if I want to keep them that way. With the head all baked, I can prep the torso with a pilot hole and some bacon bond and squish that all together. Of course, with such a big head, he's going to need some good neck muscles. A couple blobs of clay will do the trick and a little blending to bring it all together. With the head attached, I'm going to go back in here and start doing some finer detail work. Some swipes with my small silicone tool here will create a muscle fiber texture. His dreams of 1 to 4% body fat are coming true. With all that done, it's time for a nice bake in the oven. Looking solid, my guy. Now, before I begrudgingly do my least favorite part of the sculpt, I'm going to work on the grave. Starting first, of course, with my tombstone. I'm going for something simple yet classic. Honestly, something you would find made out of foam in your local dollar store. And of course you know I came up with the most original vampire name ever. Alright, it's not that original, but it fits on the tombstone nicely and it was easy to make. A lame attempt at gothic lettering and a start and end date. Now we just need some isopropyl alcohol and a quick dab with the spun. That and a little flash of the torch will give it a nice gritty stone-like texture. After a little flash in the oven, I realized it's a little too simple, so I'm gonna add a base to it. Once I'm satisfied with my tombstone work, I'm gonna move on to making some dirt. Now, a fun little technique I picked up from a fellow content creator is, well, if you want to make dirt or rocks, just use a rock. No, I'm not kidding. I'm just beating everything with a rock here. It gives me all the rocky, earthy textures I need without painstakingly doing it by hand with some silly tool. Plus, it's a good stress reliever. Before I get too carried away, I'll mark out where the tombstone's gonna be, adding some clay to the sides to give it a disturbed dirt buildup, kinda like it's been here for years and erosion happened. With every project, I kinda like telling a story. No need for exposition when you just have to look at it. After all that, I can start building up the spot where our vampire's gonna be bursting out of. Some more blobs of clay and a few smashes of the rock will give me that nice disturbed earth look I'm going for. And off screen, I baked a funeral urn and a couple rocks to really give me some variety in my textures. Some pre-baked rock texture clay will give me a sort of broken earth look. This will kind of give an illusion of variation in earth textures. I wonder how many times I've said texture. And of course, what would a spooky gravesite be without some grubs and worms? A few quick presses of those will mark where they're gonna end up, and now it's time to do, well, my least favorite part, hands. I don't like making hands because, well, they're hard to handle. Nevertheless, I will forge on and, well, do the best that I can. Although vampires do look kind of cool with some long gangly hands, so I won't get too worried about accuracy. A little bacon bond and patient blending, and this guy will be high-fiving friends in no time. Although those high-fives may want to wait, because after I push these claws in, we're looking pretty deadly. Some appropriately placed pilot holes and bacon bond will ensure these luscious nails don't go falling out anywhere. Also, fair warning from experience, check your oven rack height. And what would our nocturnal weightlifter be without some vascular definition? A smear of bacon bond and some careful poking and pressing would give this guy veins that would make even a wrestler blush. This also reminds me of a toy I had growing up back in the 90s. I miss being a kid. We had the best toys back then. Now I can finally say I'm done with the detail work and we can finally move on to some painting. I'll start with the grave with a nice dark wash to ensure that all my shadows and deep details come out. From there I'll progressively add lighter and lighter browns, with the final coat being basically dusted on. With the grave done, I can start doing all my little accessories, including rocks, a cross, and a nice little flower urn. My worms will get a nice base coat of magenta to start with, followed by a light pink to bring out those segments. The grubs will get a dark green, followed by a light green dusting. The funeral urn and cross will get a light dusting of metallic colors of gold and silver, and the rocks will get a dusting of gray. Now, after baking the tombstone, I was able to take a tool and chip away at it. This gives the illusion of being chipped away in erosion, while adding layers and layers of grays to bring it all out. Now onto the pièce de résistance. Our vampire will get a base coat of dark purple to start with, followed by progressively lighter and lighter blues. I chose blue because I really love the Saturday morning cartoons that featured vampires, and they were oftentimes either a blue, sometimes a green. The gums got a red wash, followed by a dusting of magenta to really deepen the details, and a bone white for the teeth. A final dusting of a sky blue mixed with a bit of white will really lock in all the finer details. And I initially was going to keep the glowing eyes as they were, but I decided to go with a classic vampire red. First with a magenta base coat, followed by a nice deep crimson red, and then some orange to really bring out the brightness, and finally a dot with my shaky hands of yellow to intensify that stare. To liven up the mouth, a few drops of UV resin will give it a nice gooey appearance, which I will also do to the eyes. This helps to lock in all the painting and shading we've done, as well as give it a very gooey kind of a lifelike look. With the vampire basically done, I can move back onto the gravesite and lock in all these little accessories with some 2-part epoxy. And because Past Me was smart and pressed everything in prior to baking, I know where exactly everything goes. Now my dirt and rocks are looking a little too shiny, so I'm gonna add a nice matte clear coat to dull everything up. Same thing for the tombstone. Using UV resin and some green pigment, I can make a nice green slime for our maggots. Not only does this give them a nice gross gooey texture, but it also helps attach them to the gravesite. I'll use the same UV resin for the worms, but I'll keep it just a nice slimy clear coat. Now that all my smaller accessories are attached, I can finally move on to the headstone with a little 2-part epoxy squished on there, and our final addition of the cross, and a couple roses I made off screen. Fun fact, old tales used to say that roses were a way to deter a vampire. Personally, I just think they look pretty. With a little unbaked clay to tack him in there and a nice clear coat, it's finally time to show him off. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow if you dare, and I'll leave you with a few clips of the glowing eyes before I painted them. Thank you to everyone. This is Monk's Lab of Madness. Have a great day.